think it's like people's like breakthrough of life of like love and happiness and babies and marriage. I'm like, that is a win for all of us. Like, that's not like God saying like, I love that person more. Anywhere we're seeing goodness happen, that is God's love. And so
Amen.
we actually get to glean from that. Like when I'm walking and I see a family like laughing and eating ice cream, or a mom like just being sweet to her kids or her husband or giving a kiss, I'm like, this is the good life. Like God is good. Like this is amazing stuff.
Hello and welcome to the Christians Who Date podcast with Andrea, Allie,
Lauren Bornique,
Kalli Christofferson.
Beautiful. I am still in Montana.
How?
Thanks, Kalli.
I'm back in LA.
Thanks for staying.
Sad.
Lauren's
Happy
back
to
in
have
LA. Yeah, we made an agreement that we wouldn't have any fun unless we were all three here. So,
And you all have not had fun. Is that
totally?
true?
Yeah, it's been super boring.
Okay, good. That's what I want to hear.
Silence the whole time.
I mean, I can tell Andrea's near the curtain still, so
yeah,
I know.
Now this time I'm in front of the curtains that look kind of like a dingy bar.
From
she got
Hobby Lobby.
the coveted spot.
The coveted spot. Just chilling,
so good.
You know?
Yeah.
Speaking of dingy bars.
Oh, good transition there.
Oh my
Perfect.
gosh. Just
what,
kidding.
Dre?
It wasn't that dingy, but
it was actually
we
really
wanted
nice.
to give you guys a swing dancing update because we promised it last time. We were like, we're about to go swing dancing, and
oh my goodness,
we'll tell you how it goes.
And we knew you were just on the edge of your seat, so we wanted to bring this quick.
Yeah.
I would
been
like
waiting
to start
at least a week for this.
First of all,
please do, Lauren.
Kalli did not prepare Andrea or myself for going to a swing dancing bar. We were the only ones wearing white tennis shoes. Everyone else looked so cute wearing boots. Kalli as well. And
I told you to bring
outcasts.
I told you ahead of time, and you didn't listen, so it's your fault.
I don't know, maybe. So anyways,
I thought
we're
you were
the
talking
outcasts.
about how we just don't even know how to swing dance.
Oh gosh, there's so many things. So anyways, first of all, everyone wanted to dance with Kalli from age 18 to 80.
Yes.
And she is so good at swing dancing. She was like a babe, just like her hair flowing just across the dance floor being dipped. And then here's Andrea and I.
With her like 3-inch heels.
Oh my gosh, she looked amazing. And then Andrea and I are like bopping around the dance floor if we danced. And it was like clunky. And I was like, I feel so out of my element. And so, Andrea, what was your experience?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I couldn't even blame it on anything because, I tried to be like, I'm from out of town. Like, I don't know how to do this. And they'd be like, where? And I'd be like, Austin, Texas. It's just like totally you should be able to country dance if you're from Austin, Texas. So I'm like, I haven't lived there that long though. I don't want to get into all of it, but basically I don't know how to swing dance. But I was just gonna say that everyone wanted to dance with Kalli, and the only reason I danced with anyone
proposed to her.
We're getting married soon, so praise God.
The only reason I danced with anyone is because Kalli passed them off to me after they danced with her.
It's actually true. They would always dance with Kalli, and then they're like, well, she's dancing now with someone else. I guess I'm going to dance with this other girl. And I was like, no, I don't want to dance with anyone.
Lauren is shooting people down left and right.
Yeah, she was. She was.
I couldn't help it. I had to feel it in my gut. If I was going to dance with someone, I danced with one man. Felt great.
Felt great.
Kalli, how was your experience?
You didn't feel it in your gut with the older gentleman who was around 80?
Who was 80?
Yeah, the 80-year-old.
I don't know. Something about it wasn't right.
Something wasn't right. Wow. Well, I really enjoyed watching these two experience everything that happened in that dingy bar, as Andrea called it. But they were way better than they're giving themselves credit for. They went for it, super proud. And to clarify, I am not that good. So
She's really good. Also, Kalli had a crush
say.
on the bartender. If that bartender's out there,
Yeah.
she has a crush on
Yeah,
you.
if you're listening, I don't know you, but you're
Her
good
number
looking. So
is I don't know you, but you're good looking.
She kept getting water. She was like, I gotta go get some water
like,
to see
I'm
this
just
bartender.
so thirsty. Wink, wink.
She's like, I love your tattoos. That's just she kept mentioning his tattoos. I didn't even know.
I did
It's
want
like,
to say
that's all
that
I've heard.
the second guy that we danced with, Kalli told him after they danced, and he has this magical experience where he falls half in love.
Yes,
and
he said that literally
those were
verbatim
the
to you.
words. Yes, she goes, "You should dance with my friend. She's great." And it's nice that she said that, but she didn't clarify that she was talking about my personality. And so he's like ready for like another great dance experience. And I could not give him that. So yeah, I was immediately like, actually, I have no idea what I'm doing. So you're going to have to coach me. And he did. So yeah.
But
That's
didn't
all.
Kalli, he like kiss your hand? Can you share that hand kiss that you received?
He did.
Yeah, what a
Hand
farewell.
kiss.
What a sweet
Yeah, wow.
farewell they had.
You know, the man really, he just laid it all out on the floor because we danced once, fell half in love, danced again. He told me he fell all the way in love. And then when he was leaving, he came by and kissed my hand and said, like, thanks for helping me fall in love, and then left. And that was it.
So crazy.
You know, real moments
He's
that I'll
"This
write about
can
in my
never
diary.
be. This
But
can
we
never
can
be
never be.
because
Maybe he
I just
sensed
learned
that
to
I
drive
was
like
30.
5 years ago.
No, literally, like everyone had to wear a 21 and over wristband, and he didn't have one. So we
did
knew
not
this
see
guy
one.
was under 21, and we're like, oh my gosh, he's a child. He's a child.
Oh,
What
man.
a pure man. Sweet
What a
guy.
smorgasbord of men.
Basically,
Yeah.
to summarize, Kalli got kissed swing dancing. It's like how we summarize this. We're done with our podcast.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
thank you for joining
Beautiful.
us today. That's it.
So now we're going to get
No.
into some swing dancing tips. No.
Yeah, Andrea, lead us. What to do.
Just kidding. But Kalli's going to tell us what we're actually going to get into today.
We're ready,
Yes.
Kalli.
Guys, it's a juicy one today. We're going to talk about breakups.
Dun,
You
dun,
know,
dun.
Dun, dun,
We've
dun.
all had them in some way, shape, or form. And we're here to talk about how to move through breakups, things we've learned from breakups, just, you know, bringing it to the people here. But
It's true.
Lauren, I would love for you to start us off, just sharing some things that have been helpful, some things that have not been helpful, really wherever you'd like to take us. We would just love to hear when it comes to breakups.
Yeah. Oh, breakups. I think it depends, honestly, and Andrea will share more and Kalli will too, but like sometimes the length or the investment of your heart or expectations when it came to that specific relationship. So some of the factors I think of is like, how involved were they with your family? How involved was that person with your community? How like emotionally, spiritually, physically were you connected to that person? So a lot of those then affect when you do separate, like what your life looks like. So because you start to, when you're dating, hopefully build, I know for me personally was like building my life with this person. They were getting to know people around me, like our rhythms every day. And so that is like when you do have that separation, whether it be, you know, whoever breaks up with who, no matter what, it sucks. Whether I'm the one breaking up with the person or they've broken up with me, which has both have happened. And it is just so hard. I think for me, when it comes to, I think of like one breakup, it was more like a process of one who is more serious, of we had like multiple conversations, and then I was like, this needs to end for specific reasons personal to me. And that breakup was really hard, where I actually had to go home and like be with my family for a couple weeks emotionally, to have like that emotional support group for me, and then had to make some boundaries when it comes to that relationship, of like how often we're communicating, etc. But I think for me, I was so raw emotionally. I feel like my whole world was like, I don't even know how to function. So what helped me was like specifically every day, just like finding things to do. And so like, I'm going to work today and I'm just going to do that really well. I'm going to be around people that really love me. But there is like definitely, and we'll talk about this later in the podcast, but like stages of grief that usually like you'll go through and having to process through those stages. But I think for me, something that's like helped me specifically has been, when it comes to these things, has been really like inviting my community into like my breakups. And that's something where it's just been able to like process it. I'm a verbal processor. I'm not much of a journaler like Dre is. So like verbally processing, allowing good friends to like ask me questions, and then really leaning on God of like, God, I need you to heal my heart as it feels like it's bleeding, or really giving over dreams or expectations I had of this relationship being something more that is now gone. Like it's now not the dream that I thought it would be. Yeah, but that's probably like, well, sure for now, but Dre, I'll pass it on to you.
I was gonna say too, I remember that breakup. Lauren and I have been friends for like 12 years. So, we've been through a lot of man ups and downs together, but I was so proud of you for just going and seeing your family, because I think people have expectations around like how they need to move on and what it needs to look like. And I'm just like, do whatever it takes to heal,
Yeah.
like if that's, you need to cut this person off completely and be in a totally different state for a little bit, like around a support system, like you said, like then do that. Like if if your job allows for it or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, maybe with your job, it's something smaller, like a weekend, but it's like, just do what you need to do and don't make yourself, like just get over it and move on. Like it's a hard thing to go through. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I'm fortunate. I have an amazing family. They live in another state than here in California, but I have an amazing family that's just like, hey, whatever you need to do, like for us to support you and like love you in these breakups, like we'll be it. I'm fortunate to have like that support system, which I know not everybody has. And so, but that would like really aided in the process, because I think like you start to like ask questions, or like, did I make the right decision, or why did they reject me? And so to have like sounding boards of truth in the midst of like, I call it delirium, because when you're heartsick, when your heart and emotions are like number one happening, it's just so hard to see clearly at times, like what's truth about yourself, about the situation, because you're trying to process like so many different emotions and ideas and things. And now it's usually, if you have more of like a serious breakup, you're starting to like have to start off like, it feels like a new life or a new chapter of your life or a new pivot of like where you're going. And so there's just a lot of different pieces you have to like restructure. Even like, for instance, I had all these different like restaurants and places that me and my boyfriend at the time like loved going to, and I was like, okay, well now I'm not going to go there because that reminds me of us, and I don't like that's just like really hard for my heart. And so I was like, oh, I have to like restructure like where I go in the city even for right now, because I'm just trying to process all of this. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And
Dre, let's hear from you. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, go wherever your support system is. I think every time I've broken up, I've come to you guys or like booked a trip to San Diego to see one of my other friends. Like I'm like, I need this right now. Like I need a support system.
Yeah.
So wherever they are, fly to them, get a cheap flight. And I've flown to Lauren before after she's broken up. I think a couple times.
That was very kind of you.
So
sounds like I've had a ton of breakups. I've only had a couple ones that are more serious. This girl's breaking up all the time.
10 to 12 times I've flown to Lauren.
How
after a
dare
breakup.
you?
At least.
No. Oh gosh.
Totally kidding.
Anyways.
No, it's been like twice. It's been twice. Okay, for the record. And this was over the course of time. But back now to me, over to me. I'll finally start sharing and stop talking about you.
Stop dodging these questions, Andrea.
So I've never been broken up with because I'm so just incredible. No,
That's right.
that's not true. Have been broken up with, which means it has nothing to do with how incredible you are, because we obviously
Case
are
in
all
point.
amazing and have all been rejected. So if
Yeah,
you've been
it's gone
rejected
both
out
ways.
there,
Yep.
it's not.
You're not
'cause
taking risk
you're
if
not
you
perfect.
haven't been rejected.
Amen. Yeah, you're not shooting high enough. No,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess some things that have been helpful for me, I think, similar to what Lauren was saying earlier, like don't decide that you know how long it's going to take to get over someone, because I was telling the girls, like, actually one of the hardest dating disappointments, like one of the hardest people I had to get over, was not someone I actually dated. It was somebody who like we had kind of talked, and I had a lot of expectations around, like, hoping that we would date. It really seemed like it was heading that direction. And when we had a conflict, first he just stopped talking to me, or was just like a lot more reserved, I guess. And we had been talking pretty consistently. And then so finally I just had a conversation with him to figure out what was going on, and he let me know, like, he had been interested, but then he wasn't sure, and he thought there was maybe some unhealthy things going on, like, on his end. So he decided, like, he didn't want to actually date. And I was so disappointed. Like, I mean, I had already kind of processed it because he had stopped talking to me. So I was like, okay, he's not actually gonna try to date me. But it was really hard to get over him. And so yeah, I mean, I would have told like, if I could go back and talk to myself, I'd say treat that like a breakup, because it was heartbreak. Like, and now, having been with people longer, like, length doesn't necessarily tell you how hard it is or how hard it's going to be to get over someone. The heart is kind of a complicated space and you never know what it's going to need, and there's a lot of different factors that play into that. And with him, honestly, I think it would have been easier if we had dated, because then I would have seen, like, more of, like, his flaws, and like, if there was incompatibility, like, I would have seen it. But in my head, I was like, this is like a perfect scenario. Like, we would work so well together. And so it was a lot harder than some other relationships where I've actually dated them and actually been able to see that we were incompatible in some ways. And it just feels more over. Yeah. Yeah. So I just, throwing that out there, because at the time with that first guy, I don't even know if I don't think I had ever seriously dated someone. And so I was really hard on myself. Like, I'm like, you've never even had a boyfriend, like, chill out, But now that I have, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's still like one of the hardest, like, not breakups, but heartbreaks I've had.
They all have flaws. We just got to figure
It's
them out. No, I'm
true.
joking.
It's true.
But we have
yeah.
flaws. We have flaws as well.
Yeah. And I would have liked to see our flaws blow up together, so I would have known that we wouldn't have worked out. But I'm just kidding. Anyway, yeah, just be kind, be compassionate towards yourself. And man, with him, I had to get very, like, I tried at first, because I'm like, we haven't dated, we can stay friends. Like, I tried at first to just keep being friends with him, and I ended up having to, like, just cut him out of everything. Like, I couldn't, I think I deleted his number. I unfollowed him on Instagram. Like, I had to just totally remove him from my life, because my heart had just gotten to this point where it was just really confused. Like, you know, because it really felt like he was gonna pursue me, and then he didn't. So yeah, it was an interesting one, but
why do you feel like it got your heart so deep? I mean, you don't have to share on the podcast if you don't, but was it more the fantasy of the person, or like it not actually happening and the hope of it happening and the excitement of it happening?
Yeah, I think it was a fantasy. This is a good question. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
I think it was one element was like the fantasy of it. Like I hadn't really experienced him much as a human being, because it was even like long distance. So we weren't even like day to day seeing each other like in day to day life. So I think it was the fantasy aspect. And I think also he just was a really intentional, thoughtful, like relational person. And it just was different from what I had experienced from a lot of guys. And I think that was his normal. But to me, it felt like I was special, you know? So, I think that was part of it too, was I was like, guys who have liked me haven't been this thoughtful, you know? Like,
Yeah,
and apparently
it feels so good.
Yes, I'm like, apparently this
does.
guy who doesn't like me is like better at pursuing me than people who have actually wanted to pursue me. So it was a very like complicated thing, I guess. But I was also telling Kalli earlier that I think the other thing that played into it was I had two really good friends at the time that we would like on a weekly basis sit and talk about our like dating lives. And we all met, kind of had someone come into our life around the same time. And we're all kind of talking and feeling it out. And then mine ended, but both of them continued, and they started dating them, had boyfriends at the same time, and literally got married within 3 weeks of each other. And I was
Why
a
does this
bridesmaid.
happen?
I was a bridesmaid in both their
hard.
weddings. So it was like I'm dealing with this like huge disappointment in the midst of both of my friends being like, "Oh my gosh, I finally met the one." And I'm like, "I'm so happy."
Never been happier. Crying in the
Never been
corner.
happier. I'll go cry by myself so I can be there for you on your big day. So I think that was like an added layer, because it felt like I remember sitting with Jesus and being like, what happened here? Like, this was when we were all getting our husbands and mine malfunctioned. And
mine malfunctioned.
There seemed to have worked out.
But that's so we've talked about this, but that's so this Christian idea. Like you just meet them and it just works and you get married. And sometimes that happens, like we said, and sometimes it does not. And you have to date multiple times, like we've all been trying. And it's just like there's not this one size fits all situation. And we want it to be that way, but it's just that's not always life.
Right. Yeah. And it's not this thing that you just automatically get from God. Like,
oh no.
And yeah, that's been a huge thing, is like just not comparing myself to other people's stories, because it's just hard. Like, and then you have to really like, Lauren is so good at this. Actually, Lauren's so good at celebrating other people who are having.
I don't want to marry their dudes, so it helps a little bit.
But they like have dreams that are coming to fruition, and Lauren like fully. I remember like meeting you, Lauren, and seeing like the way that you just like celebrated people falling in love or whatever, and I was like, this goes on another level. Like, I was convicted. I was challenged by it. I was like, I need to get on this level of celebration.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think it's like people's like breakthrough of life, of like love and happiness and babies and marriage. I'm like, that is a win for all of us. Like, that's not like God saying like, I love that person more. Like, I'm like, that is like the more life and love and goodness we can have in this world for people, that is like a win for all. Like, that is not just like God holding out on me. that's like a really sad perspective of God's love. Like anywhere where I'm seeing goodness happen, this is totally a tangent, but I think it's helpful.
This is good. Preach.
Anywhere we're seeing goodness happen, that is God's love. And so
Amen.
we actually get to glean from that. Like when I'm walking and I see a family like laughing and eating ice cream, or a mom like just being sweet to her kids or her husband or giving a kiss, I'm like, this is the good life. Like God is good. Like this is amazing stuff. So anyways, on to breakups, depression.
Beautiful.
So
back to the sad
back
stuff.
to depression.
I did kind of want to talk a little bit, like, you know, while we're talking about things that have not been helpful or have been helpful, I did want to touch on grief a little bit, because I think understanding grief is helpful and understanding the process of it. So maybe Lauren, you could give like just an overview of like what grief looks like and that process.
Wait, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
It blanked out for a sec. Sorry. Okay.
Oh,
Great.
yeah. I said give an overview of the grief process, and then I'll talk a little bit about it too. But I think you have a good overview.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you can look this up anywhere, but there's these stages of grief, and there's 5 stages, and it's just helpful so you don't feel like a crazy person when you start to go through grief. Grief is so healthy to embrace and embody. We hate pain in this society. Like we hate feeling pain. We hate feeling sadness. Like I think for Christians, it can really scare them. Like it's like almost taboo to lament or to be sad. But like we see all throughout scripture, there is so many areas of lament and grief, and like God, it's part of like the human process. And I was actually reading Isaiah 61 yesterday, but it talked about beauty from ashes, or like oil of joy coming from mourning. Like God actually wants to take our brokenness and replace it. And so there's even this process of us of grief. And so there's these 5 stages of grief. The first one is denial. Like when people are like, I can't believe this happened. This isn't real. Like we'll get back together. Then there's an anger stage. I remember even Andrea talking about being angry, you know, before and just being like, I'm so angry. This happened, this happened, this happened. Like there's an anger stage of like, I can't believe I tolerated this situation. I can't believe he said that to me and I allowed that, you know? There's also a bargaining stage where you start to say, well, maybe if like I change this about me, this guy would come back to me. Or I've seen the person I've broken up with try to bargain kind of back to get me back, you know? So there's a bargaining stage of grief.
I think too.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add that I think bargaining can also look like trying to get back into the dating field like right away.
Yeah.
And be like,
totally. Like, get me out of this pain.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not going to accept that I'm single. Like I'm going to start dating somebody else like a week later. Like that's another way that bargaining can happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be that person.
Yes, we've definitely seen bargaining happen where people, you're like, I can't believe they're already dating someone like a week after their breakup, and you know, they're in that bargaining stage. There's depression, which can look in so many different forms of just sadness, not wanting to eat, not wanting to get out of bed. It's just like everything for me, I always say like it felt gray, like everything felt gray. I'm like, there's no color in this life. Like yeah, wow, sad. But and then there's
it's real.
And then there's a stage called acceptance, and it's accepting this happened, this is my reality, this breakup. And the unique thing is that you can enter all of these stages at different times and move through them. It's not like cyclical. Like you could literally move through, you could be in anger, then you could be at acceptance, then you could be at denial, all of that. But the goal is that you're moving through all of them to then eventually get to acceptance, where that's where you can almost have peace with where it's at, and then be able to move through that to then get on to moving on with your life. And these things can pop up out of nowhere. And so, but those are the 5 stages. I don't know if you all have anything that you want to share with that.
I was going to add that there's actually multiple things that you are grieving as well, because you're grieving your relationship. So that's all of your shared memories and interests. And like Lauren said, restaurants that you've been to. And a big one is just having that person as a friend.
Yeah.
And like all the things that they added to your life, like somebody texting you, you know, like having somebody that you have things to do with. Like, so you're grieving your relationship, and then you're grieving your future together. So if you pictured, you know, getting married or kids or your life together, or where, you know, like the house you would live in, those kind of things, depending on how serious it got, you're grieving what you thought your future would look like, and having to like kind of be like, okay, now I'm dreaming again, like without this person in my life. And, you know, I think that was a big one for me in my most recent one. I was like, okay, like I'm going to have to start from the ground up, because I was planning everything according to him. And then I think you're also grieving your own life expectations, because now, you know, you were maybe thinking that you were going to be going to be married by a certain age, because, you know, that was the timeline you had in your head, because you met this person at this age, and you were thinking then that means I'll get married, you know, this year or whatever. And so then you're grieving that. You're like, okay, nope, actually, now I get to be the age that I am and single. And I'm going to be starting over again with somebody else. So the timeline's going to be different from what I thought. So you're grieving all of those things at once. And like Lauren said, it's not linear. It's kind of just like you might go in and out of, you know, being triggered by something that you see, or a song that you hear, or, you know, even somebody asking you a question that is now a different answer because you don't have that person in your life anymore. Like all those things can trigger it, and you get a chance to like acknowledge the pain and process through it, and you know, go through the stages of grief like Lauren was talking about.
Yeah. I remember, just speaking of triggers, there was this time I was with my family after a breakup, and we were like out for this beautiful like Christmas on the town, hang out with my family. And out of nowhere, a song goes on that was like kind of like the guy I was dating, our song. I am in a crowd. I start bawling. And they're like, oh no. Like my parents are like, get her out, because I can't stop crying. And I'm just like, and it was like totally like out of nowhere. And it was like, I just couldn't enjoy the rest of the night. I was like, I just can't. My heart is so hurting. And so we had to just like skim me out and go home. And they probably got me some ice cream or something to help me feel better. But
like, yeah, this will help.
Totally. Yeah. So
yeah.
there you go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I told the girls actually one time I was at this coffee shop by where I live that is really cute. It has this like outdoor space, and then they have different people come in and play live music. And so I went there after a breakup, and I was feeling like so many feels. So like part of me was like, I think we had gone through like some hard things towards the end of our relationship. So part of me was kind of like, I'm glad to be moving on. And then the guy who was singing was cute. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm sitting here, cute guy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like enjoying the morning. And I'm like, I think I even like kind of smiled at him and stuff. And then, and yeah, tried to wink at him. And then, and then, because I was in my bargaining stage. No, just kidding. But then he starts playing this song that my boyfriend had shown me, and it's already kind of like a sad song. And then this guy starts playing it, and I just start and I like texted these two, and I was like, if anyone's watching me at this coffee shop right now, they're like, what is going on with this girl? She's like
winking and crying.
She's like winking and then she's crying. Yeah, it's all
emotions happening.
I know. So many phases
all the grief.
Just in that one story.
All the grief.
So
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Kalli, do you have anything like just from
Yeah.
maybe like disappointments or things that didn't work out the way that
Yes.
you thought they
Yes.
would? Like what's been helpful, what hasn't been helpful?
Oh, I do. So full disclosure on here, I actually have never officially had a boyfriend, so I have not been through a technical breakup, but that doesn't mean I haven't had heartbreak in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen.
like I really like what Andrea you said about like it doesn't even matter like necessarily like time frames, but like how invested your heart gets in it, and just like just different people I think bring different things out of you. So frankly, like there have been people that it took me like years to get over, and I also used to be very, I think, logical when it came to heartbreak, and I would just kind of look at the facts and talk my way out of feeling something, or at least I would try. So I would be like, listen, we didn't even date, like they weren't my boyfriend, so I shouldn't feel this upset. Like, and I would just kind of invalidate my feelings in the hopes of like that would help me get over it, when what I needed to do was validate, no, like this happened and it was super painful, and like it's okay to be hurt, and it's okay that this is taking time to heal. Because I think that was something else I struggled with, was just like I didn't even date this person, and I've like it's taking me so long to like move past this. But once I just started being kind to myself and just really like, I think turning on that compassion, like I noticed such a stark difference in me moving on, and just I think really getting rid of the pressure of, okay, it needs to be done by this time, because that's just not real. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just makes you feel bad because you're not at a certain point that you're not. So that was something like I just wanted to mention. But some things I think that have just been like helpful for me, like I said, it is really self-compassion. Letting people in, which you guys both mentioned, is huge.
Yep.
Because when I was younger and I'd kind of process like disappointment or heartbreak, I tended to just like keep it to myself and like maybe let in one person, and it just feels like you're all alone and you're sad, and especially if nobody knows and you weren't dating, so no one can be like, oh, I'm sorry you're going through this painful thing. Like it's literally like you on your own, just hoping you get over it quick. But letting people in and just processing everything that you're feeling is such a big thing, and people just like I think have a way of loving you in that space that like you can never do that on your own. You just can't. So I would say that has been really helpful for me. Other things like you guys also mentioned, like things to limit seeing that person. Like if you need, like, well, I think you just should like not follow them on social media.
Yeah, social media is huge.
Even if it's like, if there, especially if there's that part of you that's like, oh, but I still want to like hold on or whatever. Like, it's hard, but you really like, it's worse seeing their stuff, especially if they start seeing somebody else. Then it's just like you're getting like shot in the heart every time. You're just like not doing yourself any favors. So just like really protecting, I think, like your eyes from that kind of stuff is just gonna go such a long way. I think letting grief hit you, like you guys mentioned, is so big. Just whatever emotion comes up, like sitting in it and not rushing past it is huge. Yeah, I think just always leaning into that tender side of yourself rather than shutting it down is just going to be helpful for you in the journey of like moving on. So those are those are some of the things that I would say have been helpful.
That's
so good, Kalli.
I was gonna say too.
Yeah, we both were like, we got comments to say to what you said.
Lauren, please share your comments with us.
Oh, thank you, Dre Dog. Well, I call it Andrea Dre Dog sometimes. Cal's Callie, obviously. Cal. Anyways.
Obviously.
Okay. So, well, I was just saying, like, even like you said, embracing that grief. There was someone I had dated 4 years ago, and I ran into them at a wedding just this past spring. So there's been plenty of time that's gone by, and talked to them at this wedding, and afterwards I just felt so sad. Like, I felt so sad about the situation.
Mm.
I'm glad that we're at like we're peaceful, like we're fine, like we can chat in public, great. But I felt really, really brokenhearted, just like of the missed opportunity and the friendship we had. And so I just let myself like go home and cry and just like talk to God and grieve. And I think old me would have been really hard on myself. Like, suck it up, you're fine. Like, that was 3 years ago. But instead of, like you said, Kalli, having that compassion of like, this still hurts. Like, something in my heart is still hurting that I need to let my heart speak about. And instead of just shushing myself or shaming myself for having feelings for, not that I want to date the person again, but it's like, yeah, there was like lost dreams in that situation.
Yeah.
Letting my heart go through that process of grief. Actually, I think it was like I cried, processed it for like 2 hours, and then the next day I don't even think I thought about it hardly. So it was like letting it out of my body. So I was just thinking about that when you shared that, Kalli.
That's so good.
Andrea, you were gonna say something too.
Yeah, jump in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because Lauren mentioned journaling, and then Kalli was mentioning like feelings. Well, Lauren mentioned how I journal, so I was gonna talk about that, because that is a way that I practically acknowledge my feelings. And if you're a journaler, or maybe even if you're not, these are some things that I journal, just to give you like some real practicals here. I allow myself to be very non-Christian sounding if I need to. Like, if I'm mad, I just will write out all the things I'm mad about, and usually it comes out in roasts. I don't know. I think.
Love it. Would you care to read some right now?
Yeah.
You got any roasts for us?
The last couple guys. No, just kidding.
If you're listening.
If you're listening, no. But yeah, I'll like fully acknowledge like just how, and I won't edit myself. Like, I won't try to be more holy, and like forgiving, because you can't actually get to the point where you forgive until you've fully let yourself go to the part of you that is just really mad and really hurt. And so yeah, you just really let yourself process, and sometimes triggers honestly help you. Like, we were talking about triggers earlier. If you are triggered and you think of a certain memory, like, write about that memory. How is that making you feel? What feelings are coming up when you're thinking of that specific memory? And really process that through, and allow yourself to be as real as you need to be. And honestly, this past time I broke up with someone, like, I really did not try to rush myself to forgiveness. Like, I just let myself, like, if I journaled, while I was angry or depressed or whatever, and that's like as much as I felt like I wanted to journal in one day, because it's so much to process. Like, I would just let myself be there, like, I'm like, I can be here, a while if I need to. So, yeah, I'm really real in the beginning, and then I kind of just go to God and ask, like, okay, what does that little girl, like the vulnerable part of me, what does she need to hear from you? Like, what is she needing? And it might be hope, and it might be just like love. Like, you might need to know that you're loved because you felt really unloved, or you might need to feel accepted. Like, figure out what the need is and ask God, like, for him to meet it. And then also, like we said, bring in other people, let them in on your process, and let them meet the needs inside of you too. And then in your journaling, you can like finally kind of get to the point where you're ready to like forgive that person and release them and let them go. And if you want like a really great tool for this, Jason and Lauren Valentin have a podcast called Dates, Mates, and Babies, and they have a 2-parter on processing pain. So,
Woo.
Hey yo,
it's great resource. But those are some things that have helped me with journaling for sure.
Oh, that's so good. I'm a huge journaler as well. So just finding those ways that you get to like process and get stuff out is like massive. So find those ways. So next,
for sure.
Lauren, I would love to hear, what did you learn about yourself during a breakup? Or what are some things that came to light?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I
Tell
will
us.
definitely. Yeah, for sure. You're getting like unprocessed thoughts. I'm like, what have I learned? Everything. I mean, I am the woman I am today because of this. So I think, I mean, they do breakups shape you. As we've talked about in the podcast, I put my heart out on the line. I am like a wholehearted.
Yes,
when I date, I am like all in. Just like give all of my heart. I think that's just how God made me, and I'm just like, here I am. And so I feel pain really deeply, and I feel romance very deeply. And somehow I'm an Enneagram 3 achiever. Maybe that's the achieving part of me. I'm like, do I have a wing 4 in all this? Who knows? So with that being said, I think every breakup has been different, but something I learned that I'm really hard on myself. Like I will like pick apart myself and just be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Or what could I have done better? Both in the times I've broken up with someone or have been broken with, I take a lot of responsibility. And I think it's good to evaluate yourself in every breakup. Like this is a time of reflection to pause and be like, what just happened? Sometimes it's like, what the fuck just happened, you know? But at the same time, I'm really had to learn like, how do I be kind to myself? Because I'm actually like stuck with myself for life. So I've got to like advocate for me and advocate for my heart and what I need in these breakups. So I've learned how to be more compassionate and not so hard on myself when it comes to these breakups. Because for me, I am an achiever. I want to achieve what I want in this relationship. And so when that doesn't happen, I put all this effort, heart into it, time. I feel like a failure. Like I'm like, oh, this failed, or what I thought would work out, because I've definitely taken some risk, and I felt like a huge fail. I was a part of like a really amazing, beautiful church community, and a relationship was pretty public that we were in, and it didn't work out. And so I ended up months later, just because out of like just my heart wasn't getting healed up, seeing that person all the time. I had to leave that community. And so I lost a community. And so that was like really, really hard. I carried a lot of shame of like, could I have prevented this? Or like, why did I have to leave this community? And but I was trying to advocate for my heart in that, and that meant there was like extreme loss. And so that's the risk, I think, of like going after dating relationship, is like there can be pain and loss, but I really try to seek a life of like not living a life of regrets. Like I think I would have regretted if I hadn't tried that or given it my all. Even though it didn't end up in us like getting married or anything like that. And so that's the hard part, is like really learning, like when I step into these things, I try to make my best calculated guess of like where this could possibly go. But at the same time, I can't control that person. I can't control them wanting me back or loving me back, or there's incompatibilities that happen. That's what you learn. That's why you date. And so I think I've learned to be compassionate and also embrace what I would call failure as more like, I took a risk, and like I'm not living if I don't take risk, and I will do my best to like mend what needs to be mended on my part, but I can't control the other person. And I think one more thing is like I'm a people pleaser, and I've learned that about myself, and I really care what people think about me. So some of these things were posted on social media, and a lot of people, I'm very extrovert. A lot of people know when I'm dating because they all are like, whoa, Lauren's dating someone. so that I've had to deal with is like that self-criticism when things don't work out of what do other people think about me, and having to realize like I cannot live for the opinion of other people, whether it be good or bad or what they think about me in a breakup. I have to go back to God and like, what does God say about me? That I'm loved, that he's proud of me, that he's so proud of my heart that lives fully, and really go back to like, what is God saying about my identity? And what my close friends, you know, they're so incredible, like you all, to speak truth into me, but I've had to really fight shame when it comes to these what feel like failures for me. So that's a little bit.
That's so good.
Good stuff.
All right. Andrea, what you got for us, girl?
Oh man. I learned that I'm codependent, and
Ooh, tell us more. Buzzword.
That can look a lot of different ways. The way that it looks for me is that it's really hard for me to separate my feelings from the feelings of the person I'm in a relationship with. And so, kind of similar to Lauren in some ways, I take a lot of responsibility for their experience and their feelings. And so breaking up is hard for me. I like pretty much always cry. Even like if it's my decision, like I'm sitting there crying because
So true.
I just hate putting someone through that. And I just know what it's like to be on the receiving end of, you know, hurt or rejection, or, you know, if you didn't expect that conversation or whatever. And I hate doing it, and I just like want everyone to feel so loved and accepted and believed in. It goes against everything in me to like have to be like, actually, I don't think this is gonna work out. So I've really had to like just separate my feelings, because you can't stay in a relationship because you want somebody else to be okay. Like you can't stay in a relationship because you're worried that, you know, without you, they won't, you know, be okay, or they won't be happy, or any of those things. Like that's kind of how I can be. And I can be kind of a people pleaser. So, all the things in my head were like, well, what about this person, and how's this person going to feel? And I was like, you can't, like, I kept telling myself, Andrea, you can't build a marriage on that. Like, you cannot build a marriage on his mom's going to be sad if you break up, you know, like, it's like, you can't, you have to really look at like, can I be with this person, you know? So, forever, because marriage is a long time. So you can't date to make other people happy, or social media happy, or whatever. So anyway, yeah, I've learned that, like, and also Dr. Henry Cloud, oh my gosh, my hero. I feel like I'm going to quote him like every podcast.
He's going to be on this podcast one day.
Yeah,
I know.
bring him on.
Dr. Henry Cloud, please come on here. Tell us how to date. But he says something like, basically, there's a difference between harming someone and hurting their feelings. And sometimes you're going to have conversations with people that hurt their feelings. And that does not mean that there's any malice in your heart. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. And if you're hurting their feelings, but you're not harming them. So it's and he's like trying to help people like me who are bad at boundaries, and we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and to realize, like, no, it's just it's a conversation that is inherently hurtful, but it doesn't mean that you are trying to harm people. And yeah, and even if you've broken up with someone and they've had a bad reaction, that is not because, I mean, okay, maybe you did a bad job. I don't know you personally, but a lot of times it's not because you did a bad job. It's just because it's an inherently really difficult conversation, especially if you've invested a lot. And so yeah, that's something that I've learned about myself. So I really have to like coach myself through it. Like, you know, I have to be like, okay, how do I feel What do I
Mhm.
want? Not what they
That's good.
feel, not what they want, not
Yeah.
what my mom wants or his mom wants or all these other people. Like, it's like, what do I want? Because I'm the one that's going to have to choose this every day. And if I
Yeah.
can't do that, then I need to let it go, you know, no matter whose feelings I hurt in the process. So,
Yeah. No, I
yeah,
think
that's me in a breakup.
that's so good. Something I just wanted to touch on. So it reminded me, Andrea and I love The Bachelor, big fans.
Yes.
But something they say on there a lot, like the lead will be like in the middle of breaking up with somebody and they're like, I didn't know it was going to be this hard, or I didn't want to do this to somebody. I didn't want to hurt anybody. That is something they say a lot. And the reality is, navigating love, you're gonna hurt people, and it doesn't mean that you set out to do that. But in this life, we're gonna experience pain, and you can have the best of intentions and still receive pain. And really, it's not how do we avoid pain, like Lauren mentioned, that's what we want to do. We want to avoid it at all costs. But how do we actually receive it and move through it? That is what we want to figure out how to do. So I just wanted to tack on to that. I think that was so good.
Yeah. And to add one more thing, their pain is actually not your responsibility. And it's not that you need to be totally heartless. Please be careful and considerate in the way that you phrase things. But once you've broken up, it's their responsibility to process that pain. And it is not your responsibility to stay in their life and help them through it. Nope, you just have to release them to God. Lauren even said this to me after a breakup. She's like, we're going to release him to God, and we're going to trust that God is going to help him find the healing that he needs and bring the people in his life that can support him. But you're not that person anymore. And it's a weird transition to make, but it's important.
True.
It's true. It's true though.
And I think it's so important to be clear, but also kind, which you did a great job of just explaining that. But just having that firm boundary of no, I can't be the person to help you process this pain. And I also, like you said, I can't stay in this relationship because I'm afraid of hurting you. That's actually not kind. That's just me leading you on in hopes of me not being the bad guy, essentially. But just being honest, and then being I'm sorry, but this is where it's at. And then, exactly, letting it go, processing it with the Lord. I think that is so good.
Something I think all of us have done a good job of is we have done our breakups either by FaceTime if they're in a different area, where we literally, or physically in person. We've always sought to really humanize the experience. And I mean, people who've broken with me too have done it in person. But that just is I think it's good. I think it's healthy, unless that person is really, really unhealthy, to do it on a phone call. But we're never doing this. This is another human that we're affecting by this decision, or they're affecting us. And so as much as possible on our side with breakups, or maybe saying I'm not going to do another date, unless it's a very casual dating thing where you think you need to text. But I encourage people to FaceTime. I think all my breakups, or saying hey, we're not going to continue dating, I've done through FaceTime, or
I've
have
done it
through
over
in
the
person.
phone.
Yeah. I don't know. And that there's different ways, but I think it's as much as possible humanizing the experience and having a conversation when it comes to a breakup, I think is really important, and not just ghosting or just ignoring,
or texting after you've been in a relationship for months.
I don't know. People do.
Also, Andrea, I am
things.
curious why. Yeah. No, you're not wrong. Andrea, with yours, I'm curious, why was it over the phone? Was there any reason in particular, or was just that was what worked at the time?
It was distance, so we didn't really have the option of doing it in person, I guess.
Totally.
I mean, I don't know. I guess you always have the option, but
Let me fly out to you to break up with you.
That would
then
be really
leave.
sad. And you're like just sitting there and you're like, well, gonna go to the airport again.
Can you give me a ride?
In silence.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't think about doing it over FaceTime. I think it was just like phone was what the option was that was gonna work. I can't remember
Totally.
why I didn't do it over FaceTime.
I was just
You're
curious.
like,
but I
I
did it
just
over
need
the
to break
phone.
up.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I will. This is like totally a tangent that we can delete, but I am curious because I do feel like sometimes it could be like more traumatic if you like go way out of your way to do it in person, because then they're like expecting it to be this thing where you're just like hanging out and spending time together, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually I flew all the way out here to break up with you. Like, I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like,
Well, I've always, any of my breakups, there's been like a conversation, either like multiple like, you know, I'll just in case this is on the podcast. So multiple conversations either before we're gonna have like a breakup conversation. It's almost like we are going only into this time knowing that like we might break up, and so or it's like, hey, we're gonna have a talk about a relationship tonight when we meet. Like it's already it's setting up the expectation for where this conversation is gonna go, or like with one of them, you know, we already were kind of in these doubting conversations, and then we're like, well, let's hang out and have a conversation, and then it ended up in a breakup. And so we didn't know where it would go, but then once we clarified, it was like, okay, we will be broken up. So usually I feel like at that point you're not, people aren't going to be shocked. Like there's going to be some like already pre conversations happening that get to that point. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I do think I feel like I mean, it was one of like many hard conversations that we had.
Like some were probably already in person, and then it was like, okay,
there were some
let's
in person.
wrap it up.
Right. There was some in person, and then it was like, okay, we just gotta call it.
And I think also like it kind of maybe depends on the person that you're dating. Like, because some guys, I'm like, they probably would prefer to like not look at your face while this is happening. So I think really trying to lean into like, okay, what would this person prefer, and not take like, and be honest with yourself too, and be like, okay, am I doing this because it would be best for them, or am I trying to take the easy way out? And just being really real with yourself. I think that's
Kalli.
really helpful. Yeah.
That actually reminds me, one of my good guy friends, his girlfriend of like I think 7 months basically was like tried to just break up with him really quick over the phone, and he was like, hey, we need to have an in-person conversation about this. Like, because he was still like, this is like so crazy, like let's just at least, can we like at least meet? And so she agreed, like, yeah, we can meet. And then they had a conversation and then ended up breaking up. But, you know, she was kind of doing maybe the easy way out. And he was like, whoa. Like, can we have like talk more? And so I think that's fair, like to, if someone is like, no, actually, like that feels like you're kind of doing a cop out of this relationship, or we're needing more clarification. Sometimes there's follow-up conversations with breakups. I think it only is to the point though, if you need to make boundaries of like, no, this isn't healthy, or this isn't safe anymore emotionally or whatever, to the point where you're like, nope, we're done talking. Like, this is it, you know?
Yeah. I've had people offer a follow-up conversation, and it was actually really nice that they offered it. Yeah. Because then I did take them up on that offer, and it was helpful. Because if you're not expecting it fully,
I'm like, no, I don't want to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. If you're a little confused or not expecting it fully, sometimes you do need to process the conversation, and then you have more things to say later, and you can have follow-up, and it's nice.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right, ladies. Last question. When do you know you're ready to date again after a breakup? You can go
when
either.
you're
Whoever
out
has
of the bargaining
had
phase and you've reached the acceptance phase.
Heyo.
That's like I'm like kind of saying it as a joke, but it is true. You I think for me at least, I have to get to the point where I fully accept like, okay, I'm 33 years old and I'm single and I might be single for a little bit. And that's okay with me. I'm not just going to like serial date and jump into something else because I'm not willing to accept the fact that I'm single right now. Like I have to fully get to that like, okay, I'm not going to be with this person and I have released them to God, and I feel like if I went on a date with somebody else right now, like I would be able to be fully present with them and bring like a healthy, engaged, like version of myself and not somebody who's caught up in the past or still processing through things or a little bit angry at men in general, you know, like you don't, if you're going to come into a date, like,
Oh yeah.
you would forget to open the door for me because, you know, like
Poor
if
person.
you're coming, if you're
Classic.
coming in with that energy, like maybe it's a sign that you have a little bit more you need to process. So those are some things that I look for, but I think, when you're just like, I'm ready to move on. I feel like I have experienced all the stages that Lauren talked about, all the stages of grief. Like, but it's good to, let other people weigh in too, because usually it's like pretty obvious to your friends that you're not ready.
It's so real. They're like,
You might
They're
feel
like,
so
"What?"
ready, but they're like, So feel free to ask other people for some feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's no perfect like answer for this. I think every person is so unique. But one of the things that I've kind of had, there's not a rule to it, but I am not like almost like talking about that ex when I'm like starting to date again. And I found like I was like, oh, I'm dating too soon because I'll like bring up my ex like randomly in the day or something. And I'm like, that, or I've had people do that to me. They'll bring up their ex. And I've actually had multiple dates where they'll bring up their ex. And I'm like, ooh, there's like something there where you're still like attached to that person or like connecting with them or thinking about them. And that's like one of the worst things you can do. I think one of the biggest turnoffs for me is like when people have brought up their exes while I'm like getting to know them, because I'm like, ooh, that means you're like still thinking about them. That's like a conversation down the road is talking about exes, you know? So that's something that's kind of helped me as I'm like, oh, I'm still thinking about that person or like kind of bringing them up. While I'm starting to date. So you're not needing to process like any of your baggage from your other dating with people that you're dating new. So that's why going through the grief process and like processing with your friends is really good before you start dating. But some of the things you don't even know until you do start to date, where you're like, oh, my heart's actually just like not ready for this. Since you might go on a couple dates and then realize, oh, I'm just not in it. Or yeah, I mean, it's the good thing I think that is helpful that I know maybe like I am ready to date again is when I like start to date and I realize, I'm like excited to get to know this person, and I'm not comparing them to the other person that I had just dated. Like I'm just like present in the date or present in the getting to know that person, and it's like, oh, this feels like fresh and life-giving. I think that's like been a good sign for my heart of like, yeah, I think I'm ready to date. I'm like excited to go on this date, or I'm excited to get to know this person. Yeah, I'm not jaded towards the world, which it's easy to get jaded when you've gone through some breakups.
Definitely.
And if you need to just kind of feel it out, go swing dancing and see how it feels, you know.
Get swept off
little
your
mini
feet.
date. Yeah.
Definitely.
Are you excited to be there dancing, or are you sad? Anyway, sorry, Kalli, what were you going to say?
No, so good. I was going to say too, like some people, it might be the opposite where like they just cannot seem to like get out of like being sad or any like I don't know, they're just stuck in that cycle. And for them it's like, I know this is hard, but you may need to just go on a date to like break things up a bit and experience someone new, and just know that like there's life outside of this scenario. So there's just both and again, I think that's why having close friends is so important, because they can shine a light on that and be like, hey, I think this is what's happening, and I think this is what would really help you with this. So both are important.
Both
that's happened to me before. I had a breakup and I wasn't really sure like how I was feeling about him, and I was like, oh, I don't know, it wasn't like a hard like closed door in my mind. And then I went to visit my friends and I met one of their friends, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so fun. I really like this person. Like
I remember that.
And I just and it was like, oh, I needed that. Like I needed to feel like there's other options and I could be happy with a different personality, and there's actually some things that I like about this, that like he maybe had different strengths than the person I dated before. And so anyway, that was really good for me. And I literally came back like ready to like fully close the door, because I didn't even start dating that guy. I just the like experience of like being around someone who made me feel like excited about getting out there again was really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So good.
So good. Ladies, any final thoughts?
I mean, I think like with breakups, they can be so messy, because even like we didn't really touch on it fully, but like the physical connection of like physical intimacy, the emotional intimacy, the spiritual intimacy, the life intimacy, and then have that breaking, no matter even if it was a couple dates or a couple months or a couple years, like there is like a breaking off, and it can be so painful. And so really being kind to yourself, like we talked about, and leaning into God, like allowing it to be a time of reflection. And my hope for every time I've had a breakup, or for any of my friends, is that they actually become a better version of themselves out of it. Like that's kind of what's pulled me through, is just being like, I'm going to learn, reflect from this, and I'm going to become like the most badass woman from this situation.
That's right.
Like, I'm going to become like the best, healthiest version of myself. Like, I'm not going to just like throw myself to the wind and, I don't know, eat Doritos. That'd be crazy for me, Lauren Bernique. But just like, I'll like make goals, and I'll like find ways, again, wild, make goals. It's okay if you eat Doritos, by the way. But really find ways to like further myself, and to move forward in like, hey, I'm going to take this as like a life opportunity and bring beauty from ashes, So I think that's probably something I think about when it comes to breakups.
So good.
Yeah, for sure. That is really good. And if you're going through a breakup right now, like, man, our hearts are with you. Like it's not an easy thing. And just, really like press into Jesus, press into your community and your support system, and really like don't be afraid to be needy for a little bit, like it's okay. You're going through a hard time, and let people help you get through it, for sure. Let them come around you, tell you that they love you, and that you're going to be okay. That's what you need. That's what your friends are for. These hard times like this. So so much compassion for people who are going through this. It's not an easy thing. And if you feel freaking weak sauce, you're not. You're a strong person.
I mean, you may be,
gotta get
that's okay.
No, that was actually kind of the last thing I was gonna say, is like, just allow yourself to be weak. Like we are strong. I feel like we as people, we have this resilience when it comes to pain and suffering and heartbreak and loss, but allow yourself to be weak, and allow yourself to just lean on people. And you don't have to have it together. Like that's totally fine. So just allow yourself to be in that place and be loved in that place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I feel like Lauren and I have told each other, like, it's not going to feel like this forever. It's going to feel
Oh
like
my gosh, you have
it's-
to self-talk.
it's
Yeah.
going to feel hard
Yes.
for a little bit, and then you're going to be okay. Like, this is not your new normal. Like, if you're feeling pain, it's just part of the process, but it's not going to be forever. You will
No.
come back, and you will have other people come into your life that you love and want to be with and are attracted to, and you'll have more opportunities come along.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. Love you all.
Love you.
Thanks for
Great
listening.
podcast. Thanks for listening in. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.